Why, hello, Internet! My name is Prunk, and today I'm going to be going over every single Into the Inklands card and ranking it in a tier system. This is going to be a long one, but these are my opinions of how impactful these cards have made throughout the entire metagame. Were they fun? Were they useful? Did they ever see play? So we'll go over the rankings a little bit and kind of go over the mindset of why I'm putting these cards where I am putting them. For the most part, it's just going to be, did this card see play? Was it competitive? Was it meta changing where you had to build your deck around it in the way? Um, and it's kind of like I'm just following that as like a little bit of a format. As always, these are my opinions. They are, if you do not agree with them, then I hate you. So we will continue from there. So we will start off. Let me go over the tier list first. All right, so S tier is the meta defining tier. These are cards that people had to acknowledge during the meta. Either the card itself is defined, or you had to kind of build your decks around to counter these cards because you knew that you would possibly see them. So, cards that have made a major impact in deck building are going to go in S tier. They don't necessarily need to be the most powerful individual cards, but their existence had to be acknowledged for the meta. A is always good card. Just basically stuff that you would probably splash into every color or any color. If you're playing that color, you're probably going to put it into the deck just because it's necessary to play the game, or just one of the better cards that that color offers. B is just pretty good cards. They are usually some tech options, but that doesn't limit themselves a little bit more. They're not quite auto includes, but they're really good of like two or three of sometimes. Um, C is the niche tier, or a niche tier. I don't know how to spell it. I'm just going to go like that and get made fun of on the internet. And so, just cards that have a very specific niche that can be good in right context, but aren't always good. The starter deck tier is just stuff that you would probably find in a starter deck, and or if you're first Lorcana deck, you're probably going to try and get upgrade them. They're usually low tier cards, or that just you have, and so you throw them in your deck. They're usually decent in draft, or they are just low ball tiers, but nothing that you're going to really go into a 1K with. And then unplayable tiers, just cards that probably seen no competitive play whatsoever are going to go in the unplayable tier. So that's our list. Let's go over the cards. All right, we're starting this alphabetically because it's just easier for me right now. So we are playing 99 Puppies, where whenever one of your characters quests this turn, gain one lore. On release, I thought this card would be insane. In practice, this card is really, really difficult to actually blow off. Especially if you're really just putting this into a puppy deck. It's actually not good in a puppy deck. You do want to play this in like a green or yellow aggro, which can be really scary to just drop this on turn 5 and hopefully win you the game if you haven't won by that turn yet. But overall, this card is just a dead draw in your hand in most situations. So unfortunately, I don't really think it's unplayable. I think it has its niche, but this is basically just a card you play in the starter deck, and you will upgrade and get better stuff later on. It not to say that it can't win you games, but it's unlikely to win you games. So we're gonna put it into D tier. Agrabah, basic just land. It is a 2 lore gainer. This is not a bad card. It is definitely puts some pressure on. 5 willpower is nothing to scoff at, and it's okay. There's not much to say about this. I would say that it's just a standard pretty good card. Like we'll throw that into B tier, no problem. Just it does have its good place in like pirate decks, and I think this card can be better. The 2 lore on and gaining that 2 lore on turn 3 against a really control meta is pretty good. So I'm gonna actually just put it into B tier. I don't think it's seen as much meta play, but when it's in a heavy location deck, this card is tough to deal with, and if you don't respect it, you're going to lose to it. Airfoil looks good on paper. It is draw a card if you play 2 or more actions, but you're not really playing too many low action cards. We don't need to talk much about this one. I still think this is a starter deck. It is draw power, but it's very situational draw power, just not worth playing in most situations. Alice is kind of annoying. Exert a chosen opposing character and all other opposing characters with the same name. This can have some niche play if Ursula is just running rampant. I think this card will get better in the long run because at that point we'll have so many cards with the same name probably out doing the same things or similar stuff. where this card might actually see play. But overall, she is a really, really bad super rare. I'm putting her on in unplayable. And then along came Zeus. I love this card. This is I do think it's in between S and A tier, and I'm gonna put it in A tier because I don't think you're playing 4 copies of this in every deck. I was at the beginning of any steel list playing 4 copies of this, but there's just not too many high cost characters that you need to have to deal with consistently to make this an meta defining card. It's basically their Steel's version of Dragonfire in a sense. You're popping something really big to kind of just deal with it. It does take out Beast Sad Boys. It does take out like Jafars. It does take out a lot of cards that, yes, this card is amazing, but I don't see this playing 4 copies of, and so I can't call it meta defining. I just think it filled that gap that Steel desperately needed for a big single target hit. So I'm gonna put it in always good. I can understand an argument for S tier, but I can't put it there personally because I don't ever play 4 copies of this. Ariel, 2/3 evasive. Whenever you play a song, chosen character gains evasive until the end of your next turn. This card just never saw play. I don't even think it's a good Ariel card. I don't think it's even that strong of an evasive card. Like you, red isn't singing too much. Maybe I don't know what you would build to make this card valuable. It doesn't really fix with a lot of the other aerial cards of like I mean she's singing, sure, but she if this card was a singer, maybe. Like if this card was like a 5 that could sing for 7 and then give your characters evasive, like so that way you can sing, be prepared out a little early with something, then I would say this is really strong. But overall, this card just can't see play. Giving something evasive is not that great. Audrey Ramirez, whenever this character quests, ready one item. A lot of the items are just getting burned with Hiram anyways. I don't think she's bad because she's got a good stat line and she does have ward. So she doesn't die to meta Medusa, which is probably one of the better cards in the meta. Spoiler. But I don't think that she's necessarily anything higher than like a C tier. I would say she's got her niche. She is a ward with 2 lore, so she's probably going to guarantee at least 2 ward. And I have seen some good plays where you are writing like Lucky Dime or something with her. I think next set she will be a little bit better with the new aerial stuff, but as of right now, I think she's just a very niche card. I don't want to put her in anything lower than C, and I really don't want to put her in anything higher than B. So I thought Kaboom would see a lot more meta play, and I was pretty wrong. Just 2 damage, inkable, character location. This card did not make as big of an impact as I thought it would. With that said, I still like this card a lot. With Baboom, I'm going to put it into B tier. I still think it's a pretty good card. It's going to see a little bit more play, I think, next set because you're going to have to deal with a lot like the Diablo and stuff coming in. But if we're talking about how Inklands has really made a big impact, I don't think this card made as big of an impact on the meta as you would expect. So we'll put it in B tier because I do think it's been misguided, but it I think it had more potential than what a lot of people gave it credit for. Aurelian Gyrosner, I missed this guy. Whenever one of your characters quests, you may look at the top card, put it on either top or bottom of the deck. It's niche. It doesn't tap, which is kind of neat, but at the same time, there is not much of a reason for blue cards to stack the deck, and this item right here, even though it's inkable, it's just not ever seen play, so we're going to put this in an unplayable status. I'm sure it has some niche uses, but if you're putting this in for blue items, they're just significantly better blue items to play other than Aurelian Gyrosner. Blue does everything an aggro player wants. It protects your 2 cost characters, and when it dies, you get. I'm sorry, your 2 cost, your 2 lore questers, and then when it dies, it gets 2 lore as well. This card is amazing. I do think this is strong in every aggro deck. I don't necessarily, I can't call it meta defining because not many people are like automatically winning games. It's not like aggro dominated the meta at all, but this card is just I don't see this card going away in aggro decks. It does everything that you want out of your aggro deck. So we are going to put this in A tier. We're going to Belle's house. So Belle is this card was like if you have a character here, you pay 1 less for items. On paper, it sounds good, but the problem is it costs 2. It costs 2 in order to bring somebody there. So like you're probably not getting any real value out of this card until like turn maybe 4 or 5. But if you're playing blue, you're playing ramp. So like you're not really having too many low cost characters anyways. And then if you're playing ramp, you don't really need the item reduction stuff. Um, I would say this is definitely starter deck tier. It's playable, but it's not good enough. The cost of 2 to move somebody there is just a little bit too much for me. Uh, yeah, I'm Bell's House. I would argue D or F tier. I'm gonna put it in D tier because I can see some niche uses out of it if you are playing a heavy spam item deck, and maybe if you're playing like red cards, it will help you move for free. But overall, I'm gonna stick with D tier. Cute little Bernard. At the end of your turn, if this character is exerted, you may ready another chosen character of yours. I thought this card would be a lot better because I thought I could combo it with Christopher Robins a lot and get some just free lore. It's not that great. I don't think I've ever seen a deck with this, so I'm gonna put this in unplayable tier, unfortunately. Bestow a gift. Move 1 damage counter to a chosen character, opposing character. This is F tier as well. That's pretty easy. Billy Bones, he is a pirate. He is a strong stat line, but this is ultimately just a card you have in your starter deck, and just until you find something better, you're gonna cut this card pretty much right away. Yeah, Boss's Order, chosen character gains support this turn. When a quest, you may add their attack to another character. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a starter deck card. I don't feel like there's a lot of these starter deck cards that we can just kind of go through, and it's just not going to be much. Support's a very weak keyword, anyways, so we'll put that in to starter deck tier. It's just not that great. Captain Amelia, during your character turn, gives evasive. This character gains evasive. It's a 1/5, so this getting evasive on your turn isn't that great. It's not dealing with Minnie Mouse. It's not dealing with any high threat evasive characters. So, I mean, like, if it was a 5/1, then sure, but no, this is unplayable. Captain Hook. I mean, yeah, this card is great if you're playing a pirate-focused deck. It is basically just an inkable version of Scar. So, like, during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in challenge, you may ready this character. Like, he doesn't have Rush, but if you're playing the Jolly Roger card, then he gets Rush on summon, which, if you're playing pirates, you're probably playing that and this. So, this card is really good in its deck. So I'm gonna put this in pretty good tier. It does require some key pieces if in a very specific deck, but I don't think this card is bad by any means. Even if you weren't playing a heavy like location variant, I think this card is still playable even at a if you weren't playing your Jolly Roger. I think it's got a good stat line, and yeah, Hook's Rapier. This card is broken if you're playing in like a draft or sealed format. This card is one of the best cards in draft, no joke. Once during your turn, whenever one of your characters banishes another character in a challenge, you may pay 1 to gain a card. Phenomenal. It's card draw. It does. Captain Hooks get challengers as well, which is mediocre, but the fact that it's uninkable does make it so that way you're not playing this in the actual game meta. I don't think it's a horrible card. It is still steel card draw, which they do need if you're not playing Whole New World. But overall, you're going to replace this card with anything better. We'll put it in the starter deck tier. It's definitely not unplayable, but it's stuff that you will replace it with better cards later on. Chernabog! Each player, for each character in your discard pile, you pay 1 less to activate this character. And then when this character hits, shuffle all the characters in your deck, discard pile into your deck. So this card can be good. And this card was terrifying when it first came out. Everyone was kind of really hyped for Chernabog, but it's made no impact in the meta whatsoever. I don't think this has been in a single deck list of any top decks at all. At least nothing that I have seen. So, like, it's a very powerful card, and you do want to respect it because it can come out pretty early, like as early as like turn 4 almost. If you like played Whole New World, you sang Whole New World and dumped a bunch of stuff. So like I'm, I think this is a very niche card. I think it's very scary, but it is not nearly as good as what everyone thought it would actually do. However, the minions, Mr. Chernabog's followers, this card right here, major impact on the meta, in my opinion. It just gave purple a very strong turn 1. You can quest and draw a card, or you can go into and smack some bigger things, or you can just quest and then bounce it with a snake. This is probably one of the better 1-drops in the game, just giving you draw power. This card, unlike other 1-drops, this card does not lose utility in the late game because you can just drop it, gain the mana, and draw a card later on. So it does kind of filter itself out if you in the late game. So there are worse cards, worse one drops to get late game. I would honestly say that this card is S tier. It is a meta-defining card that you will drop your character once. You can make a trade early if you need to, and then at that point, it's no different than if you were to play like a Minnie Mouse or an Olaf or something. But the fact that a one drop is still useful even late game, I think that this is an S tier card for sure. Um, we can speedrun a few of these. Chief Tui, just a vanilla 3/4 guy. He does that quest for a little bit, but he's a starter deck card as well. Cleansing Water, just being able to heal stuff. Again, you're going to cut this card almost instantly, so I'm just going to put this in unplayable card section. There are better healing cards. Banish this item. It costs 2, remove up to 2 damage. It's just a worse popsicle. Like, I don't. This is just popsicle, but actively worse and more expensive in every way. This card is unplayable. There are better things you will play in your healing decks as well. Chubby, or Cubby, whatever his name is, whenever this character moves to a location, gets +3 this turn. Again, it's basically a starter deck card, if that. So nothing too special with that one. Cursed Merfolk. If you want to talk about how impactful a card has made in the meta, this card is literally the best turn 1 card you can get in Emerald. It is discard against with even if you're not playing the discard focus deck, this is still a -1 for your opponent, and you're getting 2 lore. It makes your opponent like you're probably gonna get if you're going first, you're probably getting at least 4 lore out of this one drop, which is insane. And then on top of that, you're going to force an opponent discard or at least a removal, which is basically the same thing. Like there's no difference of you discarding cannons and or activating cannons on this. If anything, if they activate cannons, it's actually worse because then they had to waste their ink to get rid of this card. So this is easily an S tier card. The one drops are showing up a lot. All the puppies. Having 99 puppies into a deck, I've made a pretty competitive Dalmatian puppy. If you guys saw my earlier video before where I had the puppies played out, then I think you can see that they can be good. But for the most part, they are just 2/3 vanillas. They're nothing crazy. However, they are cute, adorable, and they are going into S tier. My list is objectively I win. You can't argue and say if you say that Dalmatian puppies are not S tier, I hate you. And you are wrong. If we're being realistic, though, we are probably putting this over into like I would say probably C to D tier. I mean, they are just 2/3 vanillas realistically, but they're so cute. They're going in S tier for me. And that's basically going to be my thumbnail of Dalmatian Puppy S tier, just for clickbait. Deville Manor, this card is just a really bad location. I mean, it's in an aggro deck. If you are playing like a lot of locations, it's probably going to give you 2 or 3 lore. So I don't want to say it's that bad, but realistically, I would rather play mermaids for the like mermaid versus this in almost every situation. It's 4 health. It's respectable. You're probably going to get at least 2 lore out of it. I'll put it in the starter deck tier, but I really don't think many people should be playing this card. There are just so many better things that you need on turn 1, and that can actually make some good trades while giving you the same amount of lore. But if you ignore it, like any location, it's going to start ramping up on you. Deladuck just has Reckless. It's a uninkable 3/3. I mean, like, it's Reckless isn't a good keyword. It's a really negative keyword overall. You're not really getting much out of this. It's a 3/3 for on turn 2. I mean, it's not as good as Snake. It's not as good as Smee. It's just not good at all, really, and it's gonna force you to attack. So this card does not need to exist. This card is basically unplayable. Dewey keyword 2/3 support character. We've kind of talked about support. It's a very weak keyword, and playing this card does not really even fit on the 3 inkable. Like it has 2 lore, sure, but that's not the selling point to me as this card. Like I just can't get. Even if support was good, giving only 2 attack on turn 4 isn't good enough for me. So like maybe you give this to a Hiram after, I don't know, like I don't know when you would really want to use this card. Again, unplayable. Diablo, whenever you play a character named Maleficent, you may look at the top card of your deck, put it on top or bottom. I think this card can see play later. It's not horrible, but again, there are just better one drops. I'd rather play Chernobog Followers. Because the new Diablo is coming out, I think it can see play uh, in those green purple, but at the same time, I actually prefer the green card, the green one drop instead. So like I think it's unplayable currently. Distract, chosen character minus two attack. It's unplayable. It's just a draw. It's again filter, but you're not making big trades on turn two, so not necessary. We'll do some quick ones. Dive bomb, unplayable as well. Just giving somebody reckless isn't that big of a deal. Chosen character gets reckless. Banish one of your chosen characters with reckless. I'm sorry. Yeah, what that's you're getting rid of your own card just to be able to trade with it. It's just horrible. You're not getting any value out of it. The pirate, what's his name? Zone, whatever. Don Carnage. 4/4 evasive. This is a starter deck card. It's not bad. It's pretty good in draft, but not that great. Um, I'm really sad that Eeyore does not get more love here. He is again a starter upgrade card. You can probably, if you're just playing Hercules, it's already better. Fang, we will talk about. So Fang itself is a very, very, very strong niche card. So this card says that gains ward, character gains ward or and evasive while at this location. So it definitely it's a little expensive, but I have played with the Goofy deck, and I this card has won me so many games because they just can't deal with those big character threats. I think this card could have seen a little bit more play in the meta, and a lot of people don't have many ways to deal with it. The only downside I have on this card is it auto loses to Maui, which is fair to me. But the fact that this is only a four, this is you play this on turn four, and then against a red player they play Maui turn five, which means you don't get any real value out of it. So like it's just unfortunate in its costs, but it is a very strong card. If you're not playing against Ruby, then not many decks have a strong first turn answer to this on turn five. So I am going to put this in the niche tier. I think it could be better if Maui did not exist, but Maui does exist, so we're going to put it into niche. Flint Glomberg, during your turn, this character gains evasive. Again, pretty weak stat line for being a 4-drop. All the little DuckTales characters that have the two lore. So, like, you feel like, oh, I can make a DuckTales deck and stuff like that. But, like, if this guy's gaining evasive on your turn, you wanted to make trades, and that just does not make good trades that you would want for a turn 4. So, like, if you're comboing this with another character colors, there are just better things to play. I'd rather play, like, Peter Pan Shadow or something that gives rush and evasive permanently. Even though it's not inkable, it's just a better. But like, there's just so many better 4-drops that you would probably fit into any slot with any other color. Flat Sam, your character's named Jet Sam, get +3. This card is pretty good, and I think the Flat Sam Jet Sam, I like the idea behind it. I think they'll only get better over time. But at the same time, I do not think this card really made any big impact on the meta. I have seen Ursula decks work and play out pretty well, but it's such a niche deck. I'm going to put these into C tier. You just have to really build a deck around them. They will only get better with time, and I respect what it is doing. I think it is fun game design, but overall, it's a C tier card at best. Shout out to the Forbidden Mountain. Great YouTube channel. They're better than me. Anyway, so Forbidden Mountain, I'm going to put you guys over here into, even though I love your channel and you guys are an S tier channel, this card did not make any impact on the meta. It's a high health card and it's tough to deal with, but nobody's really playing this on turn 2. They're just better things that you'll want to be playing, like Snake on turn 2 pretty consistently. So I can't put this any higher than a starter deck tier just because it's gonna die to a lot of things. It doesn't actively advance your board state. There are just better things for purple to want to do than drop a mountain onto the field. So unfortunately, Forbidden Mountain is a D tier. Friar Tuck, or Friar F as I call him in person. This card, when you play this character, the player with the most cards in their hand discards a card. This card is insanely strong. This card can win games to a point. Like this is a perfect 4-drop. Following along with Prince John, if you've kind of burned up your hand and like somebody played Hiram or something, like this card, me as a Ruby Sapphire player, I hated seeing this card because I'd always have card advantage. and then I have to deal with a 2/4 body while constantly being discarded. Like this card directly countered a lot of the Ruby Sapphire meta, which is I think what one of these this card can basically be responsible for the whole discard engine getting live, some like just revamping into the meta. So phenomenal card. As far as meta defining, I I wouldn't say meta defining, but this card is just it definitely A tier. I'm gonna put like high A tier. The only reason I would stop it from being like meta defining is because you can't build. You have to build the deck around like other discard fodder, and this card is just super strong for its stat line and stuff. But phenomenal card overall. So I kind of thought this card would be better. Just gaining 5 ink. If you're playing a high ramping deck, then this card is insane. Just getting that advantage. But giving the amount of cards to your opponent as well, I understand that it can be scary. But if you're playing against an aggro player, chances are you play this. Let's say you're playing Amber like or blue fire, whatever, Sapphire Ruby, and you play this card, ramp to 8, and then they flood their board with whatever. And you can play Be Prepared right afterwards. Like that was kind of my thought of this card is just getting an early Be Prepared, kind of baiting out, hey, go ahead and play some big cards and do whatever you want, and I'm gonna play Be Prepared. But in practice, this just didn't really work out. I also thought Grammatala, like the gains, the lore every time you ink something, would be a lot better as well, and we could build a deck around this. Overall, this card had no impact on the meta whatsoever. I don't know if people were just afraid to try it or what exactly, but it never saw play. It's definitely not unplayable. I'm going to put this in the niche category because there is a place for it, and I do not think that it is a bad card, and I think it was a missed opportunity for players to kind of go around with it. I think, though, just because we had such a heavy control meta that a lot of people were afraid to play it. So I'm going to put it in a C tier. I think if we ever go to a faster format where people are trying to play like aggro more, then at that point, friends like me will be better. But in the meantime, it can sit in C tier. I can make an argument for D tier as well, but I like it in C. Conversely, Genie, this is just a 2/2/2 for 2 lore. It's a starter deck card. It's not bad. It is aggro if you are playing like a blue aggro list. It's not as good as Aurora, which is like a 2 drop. I think she has Ward too, like the 2 version of her, or she might be the exact same line. But or maybe like Noi, who you're playing Popsicle and then playing that and getting Ward and Resist. It's okay. It's just a vanilla. So this Genie I thought would fully replace Rabbit. Its stat line is actually more impactful to me playing this on turn 4 in most cases than it was to shuffle this card back into my deck. I really had to make a lot of good trades with this card to make it worthwhile and then shuffle it back in when I knew I couldn't make a good trade. But a lot of time, this guy was a beat stick, just kind of stayed on my board. It traded with pretty much everything before turn 4. Everyone thought I was just going to spin it back into my deck and draw more cards, so they would put more things in the field. And I was able to make a lot more favorable trades. But this guy was mostly a beat stick more than he was the draw. The draw was nice when I needed it, but it just didn't make a big impact overall on the meta. I think this card is overlooked a little bit and both underlooked. I'm gonna put this like I think this is a very strong D tier card. Uh, it is a niche into some sense. It is something that it's not really a starter deck card necessarily because it's a super rare. But at the same time, like, if you don't have any draw power in your deck, like drafting this card is insane. Putting like if you have very limited options and somebody hands you a stack of cards, and like, oh hey, I have a bunch of these super rares. Why don't you take this? Like I have like 8 of these and like 4 foil ones. So I have a playset of foil of genies because of polls. Then I think anybody will be happy with this until they get their rabbits and stuff. Rabbit's a good alternative, but I think Genie is really strong. Gizmo Suit, very annoying card. I actually did face a competitive deck that played this card, and it was annoying to deal with. Thankfully, I was playing blue and I had Judy Hopps to kind of pop it because giving a character to resist every turn is pretty valuable. Or I'm sorry, not every turn. Just giving a character resist 2 when it's something you need to kill is tough. Uh, at the same time, it is not permanent like Mouse Armor. I do think Mouse Armor is better from set 1. And so because of that, I'm going to put this in the starter deck tier. It is niche, but at the same time, like it does have some play uses, and especially if you have a limited card pool. Next card we got is Grandma Tala. And so Grandma Tala, it kind of found her stride a little bit near the end of the meta with Ruby Sapphire, kind of being splashed in there a little bit. When you play this character, look at the top two cards of your deck and put one into your hand and the rest in the bottom. It's a good card. Pretty solid overall. I think this card is just always going to be a good card. It's just scrying and being able to pick out what you want to draw, but it's definitely not an S tier card by any means. So like I would easily say like A tier. I think it's better than B, but good stat line, great effect, great on turn 4 play, help you scry and get things that you need. Easy A tier. But however, that can't be said the same with her counterpart. Oop, where'd she go? Big Grandma Tala. So Grandma Tala, Spirit of the Ocean. This card did not make as big of an impact in the meta as I thought it could have. This was kind of like the reverse Jafar, of like where effective Jafar, where everyone's like, oh my god, Jafar is going to dominate everything. This is terrifying, blah blah blah, including myself. And Grandma Tala was just like, oh well, we have ways of just splashing a bunch of ink with like Fishbone Quill, and he got a friend of me. So like it just didn't land for some reason, which is weird because it's not like there aren't and like the other Grandma Talas that she can shift into are bad by any means. They're all great cards outright. I think I gave OG Tala like the 1/1 2 drop a like B tier previously, and now this other one with an A tier. So we have good targets, but this card just comes out too late. It's a little bit too slow, I guess. So we are going to put her down into a C tier. She works in a deck built around her, but otherwise she just doesn't work that often. She didn't make any big impact. I think she's good. I think there's something here for the future, but unfortunately, this Grammatala she's going to get B tier or C tier. Gustav, the Giant. I have no idea what movie this guy's from, but anyway, this character comes into play exerted. He's a 3-cost 6/6, which is insane. But during your turn, whenever one of your other characters banishes another character in a challenge, you may ready this character. I don't really know what the point of this guy is yet. I feel like you can throw him at locations to get some extra benefits, but I haven't figured this guy out yet personally. I do not see anybody playing this card. Even in like the challenge decks, this is insanely slow. As good as this card can be, like maybe this with like Shield of Virtue can do something. But overall, this card I think is pretty unplayable. This is we're gonna put this in F tier. Who we got next? Gyro Gearloose is my most commonly pulled rare that I have gotten. I think I have like a foil playset of this guy and like 100 of like normal uncommons of him. And put an item card from your deck to the top of your deck. This is pretty bad. He's not an on play. Maybe if he was an on play effect, I'd be like, okay, this card can be good. But the fact that you have to play him, wait a turn, draw a card, then tap this card, doing nothing else in the process, just to pop a discarded, like grab a popsicle from like your discard pile to put it on top of your deck again, just is not very good. This card is unplayable for sure. Hades and the Titans. Ready your Titan characters as a 6-drop 5/5. Um, it has a deck. This is a pretty solid C tier card because it does have a deck built around Hades and the Titans. It is not necessarily good, but it's not really that bad. It is a slight bump from like I got a starter deck. Oh wow, everybody gave me all these random rares and uncommons that they don't want. Now I have a Titans deck versus my starter deck. You're not going to dominate the meta with a Titans deck, but it is actually still fun to play. It's got a fun play style. This is just an extremely niche card with that Titan build. It's a C tier card for a C tier deck. Has my heart. So I thought this card would be a lot better, especially coming in from like seeing how good Ursula was in this format. I thought Green would be playing at least like 2 copies of this. I was playing 2 copies of this in my deck just because I knew Ruby Sapphire was going to be a big problem, and giving Green a song removal, and if you can sing it with Ursula, getting able to pop 2 items is pretty good. But I guess I'm alone in this mindset. I think this is a huge miss for the entire, like, if you're playing green and any other color besides steel, then having that item removal is pretty necessary. I think against a lot of main decks, like hitting Fishbone Quill with this early game and maybe a Popsicle or something on their turn 3. Because like chances are, if you're playing against like Ruby Sapphire, they're gonna go Fishbone and on turn 3. You have your Ursula out, and then they play a Popsicle. That's two items right there. You sing with your Ursula, you pop two items. Now Hiram doesn't have any targets. So like I feel like this card's a lot better, but it made no impact in the meta whatsoever. I did not see it in any top lists, and I think that's a mistake. So I'm gonna put that one into B tier. Where did it go? Okay, well apparently this card does not exist in this little tier maker thing. I guess I missed it. So either way, it's a B tier card. I think that people slept on this guy quite a bit. It has directly won me some games in the sense of just being able to pop like the treasure card, the lucky dime card, and so I like it. I think it's a B tier card. Green needs their item removal. I think every deck should have some kind of item removal. So I'm gonna put it in B. I don't have a slot for it for some reason though. So it's imaginarily there. Heal Weapon hurts, remove 3 damage, and draw a card. It is a 3-cost song. It's you're not playing this even in your healing deck. Like we're just gonna put that in unplayable. It's expensive. It's a song which is can be good. It's inkable which can be good. It can draw you a card which can be good, but you don't really need to waste. There are better cards to play even in your healing deck than this guy. People were really high on this card in the early format, and I understand why. You pay 2 less for the next item, so you pay like lucky. If you got your Lantern, you got this guy, you got your Dock, you are just getting some massive ramp on some big cards. It definitely fell off. People realized that, maybe I don't need this much ramp. It's just a slightly better Lantern, in my opinion. I don't even think Lantern is that great right now, but I think this card is definitely more of a niche build. You can play it with some ramp. Maybe a blue-yellow ramp deck would be kind of neat with it, but I don't even think you need that. So I'm gonna put it in niche. I could be persuaded to put it lower very easily, but definitely not higher than C tier. Heart of Tefiti has seen some kind of play, but not really anything too successful. I have seen this in Ruby Sapphire decks. Put the top card of your deck into your ink face down. It does cost 2. It's a little too expensive for coming in on turn 3. You're not really getting any major benefit because if you play this on 3, you're probably going to want to Hiram a Popsicle or something on your turn 4. So, but you definitely don't want to Hiram this guy because then you don't get any value from it other than just the draw 2. And then you're at that point, it's turn 5. You probably have to start dealing with your opponent's board, so you're not going to probably activate this. So it's just I don't think this is a playable card. Honestly, I'm going to put this down in F tier. I have seen people succeed with it. So maybe I guess we can put it into D tier, but I think they're wrong. You should not be playing this card. I think any other ramping item is significantly better. I'll throw it in D tier because I have seen people succeed with this card, but overall it's a D, high F, low D to me. Hey hey, I first off I want to appreciate every hey hey art is just amazing. This one's no exception. Once per turn, when this character moves to a location, each opponent loses 1 lore. I love this card in my pirate. I play a ruby steel pirate deck, and with a bunch of locations. And this card actually has won me games because I've been able to just bounce Hey Hey back and forth between a bunch of locations, stopping them from being able to win. And it's been hilarious when I have done that. So I think this card is pretty good. It's definitely a solid B tier. We're starting to see all of my pirate cards. I think I might be a little biased now that I'm looking at my B tier because these are all cards I play in my pirate deck. So I'm starting to feel biased, but no, I think Hey Hey is a solid B tier card. He's definitely good. If you were playing a location-based deck in Ruby, then you are probably playing Hey some variant of Hey Hey. Plus, he also just has a good stat line, so you can trade with a bunch of the 1/3s out in the field. So I like Hey Hey a lot. Helga Sinclair is a very interesting card. This is a pretty strong morph target, but this card is hard to play. One of my buddies, he did top in a set championship while playing this card, and when it works, it works. Like he was able to deal with like Tamatoas pretty well, just being able to like hit for like a long game Zeus and then finish it off with Helga and keeping the board pressure. So like this card can be really good. I think it will only get better with the or with the new Inkcaster coming out. That will allow you to ink this. Because if this card was inkable, I think it'd be a staple in every Emerald deck. But I don't see it being as a very high it hasn't made that much of an impact on the meta. Other than my buddy's deck who played this card really well, I gotta say this card is definitely gonna fall into the niche category. It's just not quite there. I do see potential in this card in the future, but right now it didn't make a big impact, so we're putting her in C tier. The other two Helgas are the Steel Helga, which is a Challenger +2, and then another Helga Sinclair for Emerald. When this character is banished, banish a challenging character. Just basically a smaller Cheshire Cat. Both of those cards are, again, pretty relatively niche. I don't even think they're necessary to play like Big Helga. I'm gonna put these guys in starter deck tier. They're okay. The 3-drop 2/4 is a pretty strong card in like draft. But Helga, if she had 2 lore, I would see her being the other green one. I would see her being played a little bit more. So both Helgas, we're gonna put them both into starter deck tier and D. How far I'll go did start seeing some appearances late game or later in the meta as people were figuring out Ruby Sapphire. A lot more people were playing this card. I like it. It is very, very strong. I definitely didn't dominate the meta with anything. I think given some more time, it probably could have been a general staple. I think this card is always going to be pretty good, though. It definitely didn't get its hype for a while, but I think I'm going to put it in A tier because just you got the. I think with the ramp that we're getting, it is still card draw. You can sing it with Hiram if you don't have any items to do things with. So I think you're always going to have like a 4-cost body on board to sing this card when you're playing a Sapphire deck. So we'll throw it into A tier. I could be persuaded with B, but I think A is a solid place for it. More DuckTales. Unfortunately, Huey kind of sits in the same mark of just support that doesn't really do much. He's a 2/2 that supports others while this character's request. If you have another character named Dewey and Louie in play, you may draw 3 cards. Now, the nice thing is this does play off before Dewey and Louie, so chances are you played one of those 2 cards on 3, and then you play this card. You played this card on turn 2. You quested, so you got to draw a couple cards. So there is a payoff to playing the DuckTales guys. But overall, there's just better things you want to be doing on turn 2 with your Sapphire deck, aka you want to be ramping. So because of that, I think that Dewey can just sit back in the starter deck tier as well. He's going to go in a D. Again, starter deck card, it has some fun interactions, but you're going to replace it. There's better things to do. Hydra is pretty nasty. It's an interesting card. Like whenever this character is dealt damage, deal that much damage to a chosen character. This card can clear boards in the right situations. So like you can, if you do have any card that's going to allow you to damage this guy again, or if you can just ready him so he can attack again, and you just run into things. Like this card is pretty terrifying. One of the guys that goes to my locals just devastated me with this card, and then being able to heal it back up with a Rapunzel. So playing like a red-yellow deck. This card was crazy. I think this card deserves an extra look. I know there's not too much self-damaging cards yet, but when there becomes more self-damage, this card's gonna be insane. My only complaint is when this card is dealt damage. I kind of wish with like the moving counter things that came around, if this card receives damage or some kind of terminology, so that way if you move damage onto it, you can splash damage onto other people too. I just think I'm not that like it really would affect it that much, but I think it would just be a cool interaction that you could probably make some cool moves with. But Hydra, he didn't make a big impact in the meta. I don't think he's bad by any means, but he's definitely not an A tier, so we'll throw him in B. And possibly C tier, just because he is a niche card, but I think this card is overlooked and is a lot better, and when it goes off, man, it goes off. So I'm going to throw him in B, but again, I can see an argument for C tier. Hydros. So unlike the other Titans, this card I feel has some real playable viability on its own. Exert chosen character. He is just a like my only downside is he is only two. He get quests for 2 lore, but you want to exert him to be able to freeze other characters. So he's giving you Elsa's effect for just the turn. Basically, an inkable Pinocchio that has to be on the field for. But with such a weak booty, he does die pretty easily. I like the card. It's just not that great. If you're playing the Titan deck, then you're playing him. But we're going to throw him into C tier. Pretty low C tier. I like this card a lot, especially if we're playing in a limited format. But in an actual competitive format, there are better options. We're going to do some quick ones because these are all going to be in low tier. I'll find my way. Chosen character gets +2. They move to a location for free. Usually doing things for free is good, but there's not that many good locations that came out this set. I mean, there were, but like the only good locations are like Queen's Castle that you want to move things to, and RLS Legacy. And this card just there weren't too many good green locations. As much as I like Fang, you're probably not playing this card with a Fang deck. They're just better things to be doing. So I'm gonna throw this guy as unplayable. I've got a dream. It's very similar to ready chosen characters at a location. They can't quest for the turn, but they gain lore equal to that locations. So like it readies so that way you can fight your guys after they've quested, and you'll get like 2 lore if you're playing it from Agrabah. Why are you moving people to Agrabah in the first place? So again, I think the card is pretty unplayable. So we'll throw that into DF tier as well. Iago, evasive. He's a 3/2. He does kill Minnie Mouse. That is the only reason I think he is above unplayable. So we're gonna throw him into D tier. It calls me draw a card, and then choose 3 cards to shuffle it back into your opponent's deck. That can be nice to like give your opponent back items that you've already destroyed, so that way they hope they can draw them again. But at the same time, I don't usually want to waste my turn giving opponents cards into their deck or giving them resources to draw upon later. There's not enough graveyard recursion late until like yet, so it's not that helpful to me. Just it's a filter card for purple, but I'm gonna play this in unplayable. A weak Jafar. When you play this character, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Place one on top of the deck, another in the bottom. Even as a shiftable target, this card is not very good. It just dies too much. Where are we at? Yeah. It just dies very easily to anything in the game. So I, again, think it's a pretty unplayable card. And that brings us to Big Boy. So Jafar Striking Illusionist was the card I was terrified going into this set. And I felt like, oh shoot, did Lorcana just break the game? And the answer is no. This card is good. It is definitely, and it's you have to respect this card. If you are playing against somebody that you know is playing Jafar, you need to respect the hell out of the deck because they can win like it's nobody's very, very quickly. You sing a whole new world, and then you just hardcast a whole new world, and probably you won for game. So because this is such a quick win if you play this card, you have to respect this. This is a meta changing card. It did not dominate the meta. It did not top every tournament, but this can destroy locals, and just sneak games from you, and there's nothing you can do about it in some cases. If you do not pop the Jafars on summon, basically, when it comes to round 5 ink, and your opponent has a Jafar in hand, you're just expecting a whole new world, and at that point you're expecting to lose the game because of it. Respect the hell out of this card. It did not. I understand that it did not win any LCS, like big LCS or events or whatever, Lorcana set championships. But this is easily an S tier card. You built your deck around being able to have an answer for Jafar. Jafar is an S tier card. He was defining this meta, whether we wanted him to or not. Jetsam gives Flat Sam Ward. Again, it's a very niche deck. We'll throw that into the niche category because you can have Loadsam and Jetsam decks, I think, at this point. I saw a pretty cool one with Ursula. I think it'll only get better over time, so we don't have to go back into that. There was a lot of hype with this guy, and he saw none of the hype at all. It's a very, very strong card. He is great. Again, I play him in Pirates. He is very strong in Pirates, but he just didn't really get the respect that he really deserved. I think he's a very solid B tier card, and as more cards come out for locations and better locations come out, he'll only get better. He didn't make the biggest impact on the meta, but I think he is overall a very good card that you'll probably keep seeing. I don't think he'll ever go away completely. But yeah, I think Jim Hawkins as a B tier card is pretty appropriate. Other Jim Hawkins, not so much. That is, you don't really play this card. If the other Jim Hawkins was a shiftable target, then this guy would see some play. But this guy is just a vanilla. He's just going to unplayable. John Silver, the 3/3, great pirate card. I thought we'd see more of him. He does go into the pirate deck, so again, I'm putting this into B tier because he's a very strong card with a location-based deck. Again, not sure why we didn't see more of it. It was a strong deck, just didn't have the big draw power engine. I think Pirates will only get better, but we'll throw that into high C, low B tier. Jolly Roger, pirate card, pirate deck. I'm a fan of. Again, seeing my B tier is extremely biased. Just looking at B tier, it is pretty much all the cards I would put in my pirate deck. So, sorry. Let's see. We got Joshua Sweet. He's a bodyguard with a quest for 2. It can be good. I think this is definitely more of a niche card as well, just because we don't really need a 4-drop bodyguard, but it doesn't hurt. He's probably like a D tier card, if anything. So we'll throw him here. I could see a C tier option for him, but eh. This cute little pirate thing is Kamora. This guy is not even playable in a pirate deck. The fact that he is uninkable is awful. You just play Aladdin. Even though this has the pirate tag, you don't get any major benefit from this, and the stat line just doesn't fit with the other threes. So I'm putting this guy into F tier. We're not playing that even in the pirate build. Kitas. So let's look at Miss Kita. So just vanilla 2/2, solid starter deck Kita. Even honestly, just this alone, because of how good the other Kita can be, we'll throw her into B tier. We'll finally get something that's not in my pirate deck in B tier. And I think that Kita, because if you're playing her and having a lot of cards that will have the minus effects, really the big card that we're going to talk about is Big Kita, which is, I do this horribly. I probably have a much more efficient way of doing this, but let's talk about Big Kita because she's really why that other two drop Kita is in B tier. Uh, Card's really good. It just you have to remember that this -3 affects all other characters, not just your opponents. And that has actually lost some players in games. So we do want to respect the fact that hey, this is really for so that way your opponents can't make good trades with you, while you throw down some aggro opponents. Really strong card. Quest for 3, Quest for 2. Has a great stat line. We're gonna put her into B tier as well, just because I think that even though she's not as good as the Queen combo from set 2, I think she is really strong as well and is a good alternative if you didn't want to play Queen combo. Simba Kita, where it's 2/3 bodyguard. I'll put her in B tier again as well. Again, just good enough. Is a great shiftable target if you wanted to. Didn't see too much play overall, but I think she's very. I mean, as good as Simba is, Kita's the exact same card, and you're probably playing the same colors anyway. King Louis. This card is only playable in draft. He can come out as a ramping tool. So I will say, like as a starter deck boss monster, he is okay. So we'll throw him into the D tier. He could be better. Um, the Kit Cloud Kickers, that whole engine overall until we get to the green one, those are pretty starter deck tiers. If that. Kit Cloud Kicker, the 6 drop, is pretty strong in, again, a limited format, but you're probably not playing limited. This is talking about the meta. This other weak Kit Cloud Kicker, though, I honestly wouldn't play him at all. There's just so many better 1-drops. We're going to put him in unplayable. However, Green Kit Cloud Kicker, we got to talk about you because you are a saving grace to a lot of green players. This card right here was, I think, very much overlooked early on, but it's such a good. It's a great card. Helps deal with some aggro. Gives you a good body on field. Um, Especially against other green decks, like being able to bounce Ursula, being able to bounce the Flynns and everything else. That just I don't have time to deal with it right now. I'll come back with it. I think this card is phenomenal. We are putting this card in A tier. It wasn't quite meta defining. Like people aren't winning their games all because of Kit Cloud Kicker or building their decks around avoiding Kit Cloud Kicker, but it's definitely an A tier card for sure. Looking at some of the other ones, I think those are the only 3 kits. Yeah. So back now we're at some location of Cusco's Palace. This card never saw play. It basically had Cusco's effect built into it. It's no touchy. So when a character is banished here, banish the challenging character. Not a big deal. Last ditch effort, uninkable. So it did allow you to challenge unchallengeable characters. Even exert chosen opposing character. The chosen character of yours gains challenger +2. If this card did not make you target something and just said, hey, you can target a unexerted character this turn, this card would be playable. Because it doesn't, it's unplayable. Lena, Rush 1/3, horrible, kind of unplayable as well. Just horrible stat line. Just wait next turn and play Fox. John Silver's, or I'm sorry, John Silver. Little John's. I don't think either of these were really good, unfortunately. They both have bodyguard. While this character is exerted, your characters with bodyguard get 1 lore, resist and 1 lore. Bodyguard decks never really took off. Again, it's a strong starter deck card, I feel like, but you're not really getting much out of it unless you're building pure bodyguards, which I don't feel like this is the payoff that you want if you're doing bodyguard, bodyguard, bodyguard. You're probably looking for like the consistent 2/3 lore characters. And if that's the case, this guy just comes out way too late. Little John, the pal, just during your character it gains evasive. It's a bear. Why? I don't understand why this card gets evasive, but it does. Maybe because it's sneaking and he's disguised. I think this card's unplayable as it stands, though. Unlike the other John, where it has some niche use, I don't even think this Little John is worth playing. His stat line isn't really enough to deal with any of the big evasive threats. Anyways, maybe if he was a 3/4 or a 3/3, then I would say he's good, but unfortunately not. Back over here, we're going to go to Dewey. Or I'm sorry, this one's Louis. Louis says that support. It's another support character. This is again pretty unplayable. I mean, it's a start. I won't say unplayable. It's starter deck. And just having the Ducktales, they all have 2 lore. Like they're all okay, but the okay is not good enough. Lucky. And we got Lucky Dime next to it as well. So Lucky, we're going to talk about this guy. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more. I don't think it's bad, but it's definitely not. It's not as impactful for the Dalmatian deck as you would think it should be. So his effect says reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, put each character that costs 2 or less into your hand, put the rest of them bottom of the deck in any order. So you're probably playing a lot of aggro characters, and so this guy is there to help you fill up your hand. Problem is, it is a tap effect. So he has to survive the turn he comes in. He's only got 3 health, so that's not that big of a deal. But he's going to be a big target because of his second effect. Honestly, I would say that if he didn't have one of the 2 of these effects, he would probably be better because it makes this card is a massive target. It's because of the second effect, Puppy Love. When this character quests, if you have 4 or more other characters in play, your other characters get +1 lore. That can just single-handedly win you the game. But the problem is, because of that effect existing on this card, it is automatically a target, on top of the other effect that's automatically a target. So you're very likely not going to be able to resolve either of those effects on your turn. So it does too much. It's uninkable. Unfortunately, as Lucky is one of my favorite pups, but he is going to go into starter deck tier, and that's just being generous, honestly. I think that like Piglet is just a better copy of this card in a sense, where it's just gaining. If you have 2 other characters, then gain 2 extra lore on Piglet. But I love Lucky, the 15th puppy. I'm sorry, buddy. Unfortunately, you got to go into D tier, which will bring us into our next Lucky card. Lucky Dime is the best 1 or 2 of that you will put in your deck if you're playing Sapphire. This card did define the meta, period. This is definitely an S tier card, and that is purely because a surprise closeout for the game is all that a Sapphire player needs, and they're playing such high like 3 cost or 3 lore characters and stuff, or even just playing Bell, where you quest with Bell on turn on something on turn 7, whatever, or you turn 9 when you have enough ink, and they don't have an answer to deal with that Bell when you're down to 10 lore and you have Lucky Dime. You quest with Bell for 5, and then you play Lucky Dime, and then you quest, and then you activate it again. You just gain 10 lore out of in 2 turns. Your opponent didn't have, if they didn't have an answer for Bell, then they lost because of Lucky Dime. Lucky Dime can target a lot, like a lot of big cards like Gaston, like a lot of the 3 cost or 3 lore characters were just insane. And even if you couldn't do that, even if you just play like a 2 lore character end game or something, or even if it's just 1 lore character, if this card is on the field, it is a threat. You had to play item removal specifically because of this card alone. And to me, that's meta defining. This is an S tier card. Even if you weren't playing 4 copies of this, which I honestly don't think you should, playing 1 or 2 of these is pretty insane, and that's all you needed. Lyle Green, just giving somebody a Reckless, I thought would be actually a little bit better, and I considered it early on, but this card just didn't pull out what I feel like Green needs. Again, it's got the unfortunate tag of not being inkable. So it has a niche card that is not inkable, which to me is rough. With that said, it's not unplayable, and you're going to probably put it in build around this card specifically, so it's not quite a starter deck. I'm going to put it in the niche category for C tier. Same with Lithos. I actually had a really fun character with this. I was playing Weight Bench with this card. This card's pretty good. Again, it's a Titan tag, so you're probably just playing it in a Titan deck. So it's going to go into a C tier as well. But finally, Miss Medusa. This card right here. This is a meta-defining card for sure. So Medusa right now, just being able to pop so many good characters with 3 or less on turn 6, it did replace Tremaine quite a bit until I feel like Ward started coming back a little bit more with like our Prince Johns and stuff. This card, phenomenal. Has this card ever really beat? Yeah, this card never really took a like $10 tag or anything for some reason. but easy staple for any or any red card in the future. I feel like this card's always good as far as meta defining goes. So it's going to be between A and S. I'm willing to put this into S tier because of the fact that so many people had to start changing up their decks to play more ward characters or play less like three character cards because of how dominant Ruby Sapphire can be, and being a Rumi Amethyst was as well. Because they could play Madame Medusa and just pop very specific characters. I think that because people knew that this card existed, their deck buildings changed, and so I would easily say it's an S tier card for sure. All the brooms are very niche. I think that now in the next set coming up, we will start to see some that they'll end up being better. But the brooms are all niche. It's a very you build the deck around them. I think it's pretty fair to say that all of them are going to be C tier. I don't really have a debate. I don't think they're quite starter deck level of the sense of like, oh, you're just going to replace them whenever. You are building a deck around them. So we'll throw those guys all into C tier for us because it is a deck that you can play around. Magic Carpet is a he is evasive, so it's not. He's evasive on turn 2, which is not bad. He can bring you to locations for free, which free stuff is usually always pretty good as well. I have actually played this in a draft format and had a location themed deck, and Magic Carpet did some work, just casually gaining some lore. But in a structured format, I don't think he's that playable, unfortunately, yet. I can see with the better location cards coming out that he might see some more play, but overall, not really worth it. The Magic Dispel, this card at 2/3 vanilla is not really. I mean, she's a starter deck card. She's not unplayable, but she's not really playable. Magic Dispel, the big version. I have tried making this chiclet work, hoping to kind of play this and combo it off with Lucky Dime, and it's so expensive, guys. It's uninkable as well. So if you're playing blue, like you can hopefully ink a couple of her, but like you don't really want to. And then Lucky Dime's expensive in order for you to get really a big effect out of this. Unfortunately, I don't think that she's playable in her current state. If she was inkable and I didn't have to go through a bunch of extra hoops, I could consider her being good. But I there's stuff that needs to be done with Magicka first. This other Magic Dispel, I'm going to actually put into a structure deck as well. Return chosen item cost. It is purple's only item removal, and that's okay. But it's not even like good item removal. I mean, she is very situational item removal, but she does quest for 2 and has a solid stat line. So and she's inkable, so I don't think she's unplayable like the big version of her. Marion. When you play this character, chosen character gets -2 this turn. Not really that relevant, but her stat line is pretty good, so we'll throw her into starter deck tier. Maleficent. This card I think will be a lot better next set, but as it stands right now, this card never saw play whatsoever. She's sitting at a $3 legendary right now, so that's not a good sign. That she kind of shows right off the bat that people aren't interested in playing her. Even her enchanted version is sitting at $130, so again, nobody's really interested in getting this card right now. I would recommend picking these guys up while they're cheap, though, because I think she can be better. I actually need like 1 or 2 of her still, so I might actually order her tonight. So we will put this card into D tier. If you open this up and you throw this in a starter deck, sure. But otherwise, because she can be draw power, I just don't think she's much else. Madame Odie, when you play a song, you may put the top card of your Inkwell in Exerted. She's got her niche. She's not bad. She's a pretty decent stat line. She's basically a situational Mickey Mouse detective when you're playing songs. So if you do have more songs in your deck, then sure, go ahead and put her in. Other Madame Odie, when this character quests, move up to 2 damage from a chosen character. This card's unplayable. Even in like a constructed format, it's just too slow. It's on turn 7, you can move 2 damage to counters from any character off of this guy or something. Like it's not that great. Map of Treasure Planet. Pay 1 for the next location, 1 less for the next location. You're pay 1 less for your characters to move to that location. It's even in a location deck, not really playable, not worth the slot. Maui, Soaring Demigod, Reckless. If this guy get in my belly, whenever you character named Hey Hey quests, get 1 and loses Reckless this turn. Unplayable. Pretty solid stat line. But overall, just you're not going to be fitting this card. If it was inkable, then I could see it getting an option, but no. Maui Whale. This card, on the other hand, did see some competitive play and competitive success. I think a lot of people just experimented with this card, and I understand why, because it was a great location dealer. However, it didn't deal with McDuck Manor, which was the biggest location at the time. If this card could be like a one turn delayed of killing McDuck Manor, if this had 9 attack, then I would say that, hey, this is a lot pretty good. But I'm going to put this guy into starter deck tier. It was a nice experiment. It's not a bad card. It's just not. It's not even really in the niche category where it's like a tech option. It's just big stat monster, go boom into things, but doesn't kill McDuck Manor, which is the biggest thing I'd want it to kill. If it was a 9 attack character, then I would say, yeah, this card is great. It should have been a direct counter to McDuck Manor, in my opinion. Maui's Fishhook. This card saved the meta from dealing with evasives. So this is the only reason that Ruby Sapphire was able to just deal with so many evasive characters. And I don't think this card will ever see non-play in a Ruby deck because sometimes you don't need to throw a bunch of evasive cards in. So we are going to put Maui's Fishhook into A tier. I wouldn't call it meta defining because you're well, according to my definition of this, meta defining is things that you would put in to help stop what other people are doing or just construct your deck in a way so that way you can see it. Maybe this card is more meta defining than I'm giving it credit for. I'm gonna go with my gut and leave it in A tier because it's just always gonna be a good card. I don't know if it's gonna be considered meta defining yet. Maui's Place of Exile, give characters resist. It's okay. Again, nothing too crazy. I think that one can just go into a solid like maybe a C tier, very niche. But McDuck Manor, we got to talk about this card. This is the most broken of the locations. 9 health. This card has gained me like 10 lore in one game playing this in a Ruby Sapphire mirror match. There's not a good answer for it. Like you gotta Maui it to Maui. You have to Maui it twice basically, or Maui Fishhook it. So it always requires at least 2 cards to hit into it. This card has won me so many games, especially in the mirror match, that I think this card is easily the best location printed. And honestly, I think it's been a meta-defining card that people do not respect enough. So I'm gonna put this card into S tier. If you do not play around it, if you do not come in respecting how good McDuck Manor can be, you are going to lose to it. And to me, that's meta defining. We can pretty much just bulk this entire pile as Mickey Mouse. This one is going to go into F tier. This card is not playable even for like starter decks, in my opinion. Character gets +1 for each location you have in play. He's a 3/3/3, so he's a 4/3. Not a big deal. Not much of a payoff for this guy, unfortunately. Mickey Mouse Trumpeteer, other than my Goofy deck, this card is pretty bad. He is definitely going to go into C tier as far as a niche, but this card, because this card can sneak out some big characters, but there are usually better things you can be doing on your than dropping a Goofy into your deck from your deck. And if you're playing like, you have to play big stuff like Dragon maybe, but then you're playing Steel Red, which you don't have draw power, which you're probably not playing Dragon anyways because you can't really get to 9 ink. Uh, the only good targets are like Goofy. It's literally Goofy or bust for Trumpeteer. Milo, I wanted to like a lot. He's not good, and neither is his shift. Milo can go into starter deck tier. If you have no other removal options for green, which you should have a better options, then this card can be good. But bouncing your opponent's characters is often worse than just leaving them on the field. And in some cases, a lot of times if I've shifted into him just so I can get to the quest for 3, they're running into like with like rabbits or foxes and everything else that are bouncing and helping their game state along. So I'm gonna put this card, and it's not unplayable. We'll put it into D tier, but I wanted this card to be better than what it was. It's not. It's pretty bad. Other Milo, this one's just +2 attack while at a location for a 2-drop. It can trade, but again, it's a little slow. I'm gonna put it in unplayable, maybe a little bit harsher at this point. Minnie Mouse, again, location +2 attack. It's 0/3. This card is trash, if anything. No stat lines unless it's at a location. That is awful. So you can't do anything till like turn 2 or 3 most likely because there's no free locations. So this card should not be how it is. If it was a 1/3, I could respect it, maybe gaining 1 attack while at a location, but no, it's bad. Minnie Mouse Singer, I thought I'd see her a little bit more of her. She is okay, but she's just a starter deck card, unfortunately. Same with like Miss Bianca. Singing 4 is okay, but there's just better things you need to be doing on your turn too. So we'll put her there. Moana's, I love Moana. It's one of my favorite like new Disney movies. But neither of these cards are good at all. Like when this character moves to a location, like maybe eventually we get some more princess like pirate stuff. This can be good, but both of these cards are unplayable. We got to talk about Morph though for sure. So Morph, this card is going to be fitting in. I think this card is a solid A tier card. I do not think it is S, and I understand that people might be like, well, this card can get into anything big answers. Why is this card not big higher up? A lot of time, Morph is going to die to something early on turn two, and or people are going to expect a big shift, and so they're going to have an answer ready for it. So I think that green has better things to do than drop a beast on turn 3 or dropped a like Milo Thatch on turn like if the like maybe bringing out big Tinkerbell on turn 4, but that means you're playing this card on turn 2 and not doing it with anything for it for a turn. So maybe this card should have been like a Morph Space Goose should have been like a 3-drop instead with a little bit higher defense. Uh, it is good when it works. It doesn't work always. I think A is a very good place for it. People might disagree with me, but they're wrong. So we're gonna go from there. Mananui, it's a okay card. We'll put this in starter deck. Just gaining ink if something dies while it's in there. I've seen it get some major value. It's a pretty like all round pretty decent card. It just did not see any big metagame play. And again, I feel like Sapphire has to do a lot more on turn 2 to prepare themselves, and I think this card is too weak for that. And even on your turn 3 play, you're probably going to need to play Fishbone Quill or something else so that way you can really get ramping a lot more. You're not playing as many low cost characters. Maybe in some kind of like mid range aggro deck that this card could be a little bit more live, but overall I think it's pretty not that great. However, Mr. Smee, oh boy, how we talked about Snake being S tier last set. This is the new Snake. This is definitely an S tier card. So Mr. Smee, you're gonna go all the way up here. You are meta defining a lot, like as you stand. This card is just 3/3, quest for 2, heavy pressure. Yes, it hurts itself. That's not always a bad thing because if you play Rapunzel next turn on turn 4, then you're drawing 2 extra cards on top of that. Or you can just mitigate the damage if you're playing Captain Hook, which a lot of people will play Captain Hook with this card. So I think this card is phenomenal. It puts heavy pressure. It's got great stat line. It'll allow me to make a trade. And not only will it let me make a trade, I'll be able to keep this guy alive in most cases. So easy S tier card for sure. Let's get some of the filler out as well. Mr. Snoops, you're not as cool as Mr. Shmee. You got a good stat line. You're good in constructed or in a sealed format, but otherwise you're pretty unplayable as you stand. Same thing with Mufasa. Nobody's playing Mufasa. Nobody's really playing Nala either. Like again, all good in like sealed formats, but just not good enough. Nani as a bodyguard, I like as a card effect. It's got a good stat line. There is possible potential with a bodyguard deck, but overall, I don't think it's playable in the current state, at least competitive wise. Neverland, I've seen this card again. It's more of a starter deck card for sure. It's early aggro. I just think there are better options to be playing that on turn 1. Putting a character, I think, is more important. Nottingham, a vanilla version again. It's got 6 lore, or sorry, 6 willpower, but not quite that great. I'm again just going to put that into the starting deck tier. Nutsy, your D. Olympus, just a 2/3 vanilla starter deck card for sure. On your feet, Olympus would be that way. Plus 3 for all changes in location. Again, good and sealed. On your feet, good and sealed. Orville is horrible altogether. So we're going to put D, D, and F tier. D, D, F. And then we're getting to Patch. So, fun story about me. I have a Patch doll from when I was like a little kid. And this is my favorite dog in the world. So, really cool card. I like it a lot. So, this is an S tier card to me because I love this dog. However, its effect is literally the worst one of any of the dogs. So we are going to put this card as unplayable. And nobody, I want to put it as unplayable because I don't want anybody to ever banish this card. It just deserves to live a long and happy life. So we're going to put it in unplayable for the noble reasons, okay? Perdita is great. In my specific yellow deck that I made with the puppies, then this card has been really, really good. When you're playing like aggro and stuff, I've seen some really cool loops with like the Rush Stitch card, which is great. I like this card a lot. It was not that impactful in the meta, but you can make some really fun decks along with it. I think that this card is only going to get better over time. I'm going to put this in B tier. Uh, and that's probably praising it a little bit too high, to be fair, but I can see a lot of potential with this card. And this card alone made aggro decks viable. Um, just dropping them in, reusing them, constantly getting some field presence. I think with the right builds and the right players getting behind aggro, that this card could have seen a lot more play. She's still sitting around $5 for two, which isn't too bad. But I think that Perdita is a greatly underutilized legendary that we haven't really fully explored yet. Peter Pan, he's unplayable as he stands right now, unfortunately, which is sad because he's a legend. He isn't enchanted, but we are going to put them into that tier. The other Peter Pan, where the green one will, and green and red versions of them, like none of the Peter Pan cards are good to me at all. Like they're very very niche, and I wish I could see more. It's the 1/3 rush could be good, but only while you have Tinkerbell, then he becomes actually valuable. So you have to play a pink Tinkerbell. That's too situational. Uh, and once per turn, when this character moves to a location, gain a lore equal to that location's thing. Oop, what just happened? Everything's gone. That Peter Pan again, I think is pretty unplayable. Uh, the Pirate Peter Pan, it's a shifting, so you think it would be cool, but again, just deal evasive and then just deals with pirates really well, which it's not like pirates dominated the meta anyway. So again, I'm gonna put all those cards in kind of like a D tier. Piglet, however, is a great aggro card. This is easily an A tier card for Piglet, just because this is one of the best cards Yellow can play for a aggro list. Pluto, the superhero dog, is cool, but it's definitely more niche. Again, if we're seeing more bodyguards, then maybe we'll start to see that a little bit more. But he never really got off the ground. Unlike small Pluto, small yellow Pluto at least. This card is seen in almost every Emerald deck. I'm sorry, Emerald, every Amber deck. I think this card is definitely a solid B tier. I don't think it's good enough to say A tier because it's not in. Oh, okay, I said every deck. It's not in every deck, but with some ramp potential, this card is amazing in red yellow. Uh, if you're not playing Steel Song, then you're probably not playing Pluto. But in any other yellow like controlled like deck or just playing some big stuff, this Pluto is phenomenal. Unfortunately, small Pluto, the blue, is not going to see any play whatsoever as well. Unlike Pongo, Pongo does see, again, very specific decks. You don't have to play a Dalmatian deck to. Wait, why aren't you working? You don't have to play a Dalmatian deck to see this card either. So, like, I like this card a lot. You are getting some draw. If you're playing a heavy character deck, I think Pongo is a really, really strong option as well. I'm gonna put him in C tier though, because again, you're only playing him in a character-heavy focused deck, and I think his stat line is a little weak for wanting a continuous effect with him. So we'll put him in C tier for now. Pride Lands had some hype, but it all fell off. Everyone kind of realized that Pride Lands Steel Song or Steel Amber isn't the best. It's good, but it's not that good, unfortunately. So we're gonna throw this card into starter deck tier. I I've never feared when people play Pride Lands, even though it has that 7 willpower. It's never been that big of a threat to me, and so I'm just gonna stick to a C tier. Because I'm sure there are good players who dominated with it, but it doesn't seem like it's dominating the meta other than like 1 week it did. Prince Eric, I'm surprised this card didn't do better. I thought with show your teeth or whatever, then this card would be seen a lot more. I think that it can go into a solid like C tier again, just because it's not a bad card by any means. You can crash and then trade with two things ultimately with it in an ideal situation, or you can kill it and then still get a good like trade off. But it is a little bit more situational compared to it, like the Medusa or like Lady Tremaine. It's just if he was inkable, then I think it'd be a lot better. But if he was inkable, I think he may have also been broken. So we're gonna stick him into C tier. This Prince John unplayable. Pua,
I've seen played, so I can't call it unplayable, but you shouldn't be playing it, so I'm going to call it unplayable. Pyros is during whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may ready chosen character. It doesn't have. It can be Pyros again. Again, niche deck, niche tier. C is totally fine for the Pyros. Queen of Hearts. Whenever this character quests, villain characters get +1 lore. You would think would see a little bit more play, but we're gonna throw her into starter deck territory. If you're playing, and not so much as that she's like, oh, you're building her in a starter deck, because you do need a lot of villains to make her work. But I don't think she is unplayable, but she's definitely not that great. Quick patch, unplayable. You don't play this card. And finally, let's talk about Rafiki. Hold on a second. Rafiki is one of the best one drops in the game. This is easily another S tier one drop card. We're seeing a lot of them. They went above and beyond with this card. This is basically just Purple's Captain Hook, but because it did allow us to make better trades than we would expect. So meta defining in the sense of it's able to make the favorable trades. People stopped worrying about 1/3s because this card existed. Because like, well, they're just gonna play Rafiki, so my 1/3 body doesn't really seem like it's giving me as much value now. So let me look at alternatives instead. And people went back to playing like twos, or two twos. So I think Rafiki is really responsible for being able to deal with so many early game, especially against Emerald. This card was able to just deal with so many problems, and it's what kept purple the dominant color in my opinion. Raz Al Ghul, he's unplayable as he kind of stands, unfortunately. He's Raz Al Ghul, or Razul. While this character has no damage, gets +2 attack. Weird for a guard. Again, not even like really that. I would rather play Smee. That's really what it comes down to. I don't think he's playable in his current state. You have to have damage for him to make a favorable trade, which doesn't really make sense for a guard either. I don't like it thematically, and I don't like it like as it stands. Um, the repair card, remove up to 3 damage to your location. We already seen this. It's unplayable. Rise of the Titans, it's a solid B tier card. It is not in every deck, which is weird to me. But I think you should always play like 2 or 3 copies of this card. So we'll throw it in B tier because having an out for McDuck Manor is really important. Having an out for Queen's Castle is really important. Having an out for Lucky Dime is really important. We didn't see this card in every, like 4 of in every deck, but I am questioning those. If I was a Steel player, I'm questioning why I wasn't seeing 4 copies of these. So I think it's a big mistake. Robin Hoods. These are easy S tier cards. I hate these cards. I don't think they should be. I wish they weren't S tier. I again, I'm not a Steel player, but both Robin Hoods are easy S tier cards. Uh, Big Robin Hood for obvious reasons because it literally does everything. It kills things and gives you lore and gives you draw when you do kill it. It's got a massive booty that it just shouldn't have. If this guy was a 3/5, I would be say this card is more balanced and I'm okay with. But at the same time, he's not. So these guys can easily sit up in S tier, and I'm unfortunately we have to deal with it. Robin Hood, Lazy River, or I'm sorry, what was it? Lightsaber? Daydreamer. I call him Lazy River. Really good card. Again, fun in a Mickey Mouse trumpeteer kind of deck list. But otherwise, you're probably not playing him that much. I would say we saw some experimentation with him playing as a one of to kind of get like some finishes. So we'll throw him in the niche tier because he's an interesting tech option. But otherwise, I don't think he belongs there. We did miss one. Where's RLS Legacy? RLS Legacy is the location card. Again, pirate-based deck. It is a very, very strong B tier card to me because of how good pirates can be. Just pirates were not meta-defining, but they were really strong overall, and I think everybody should give them a look again because pirates are pretty sweet. Let's see where we at. We're losing our ground a little bit. Robin's Bow card is great and sealed, but again, pretty unplayable otherwise. Just better options to deal with. Deal 1 damage to damaged character or location. Whenever a character of yours is named Robin Hood Quest, ready this action. I've seen this combo pretty well, but otherwise it's a pretty bad card. Rolly, another support pup. We're going to put him into D tier as well. He at least has the stat line, unlike the Dewey Huey Louie line, where he can be 3 attack. So it's actually viable. But I kind of wish that he had like 2 questing to make him really, really stand out. Really, Rolly should stand out more. Rufus, I forgot this card existed. When this character is banished, you put that card into the inkwell and exerted. I mean, it's Grammatala. Like, it's good, but it's so cost efficient and cost heavy, it's not really worth it. Scrooge McDuck, these cards never saw play. And this is another one of these that I had like 100 of them. During your turn, whenever this character is banishes another character in a challenge, you may play an item for free. Sounds great, but this guy is not that strong. And again, he's uninkable and he's a 5-drop. So I don't think this card is playable. Scrooge McDuck, I keep on thinking this card is good until I play it and then realize you have to quest in order to get his effect as well. Whenever this character quests, you gain one. You pay one less for an item you play this turn. Not good. It's super slow, and there are now better things that you're going to want to be playing in your turn two. So we're just going to remove that. Scrooge's Top Hat, again, unplayable. Just pay one less for the next item you play. I mean, it's a long-term investment card, but usually you don't have to rely on items that hard. Scroop, unplayable as well. It's just a pirate that has extra attack with you have damage. Shenzi, great and sealed, but requires location, so unplayable overall to me. Sheriff of Nottingham. Remember that OTK everyone feared? Remember how shitty it is? Yeah, it does not. It's not a consistent OTK whatsoever. We will put this in C tier just to give him the respect because there is OTK potential. It's just very, 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 very unlikely. And if you're still trying to make that work, I'm sorry. Simba. This Simba is a nice budget option compared to like Tinkerbell or something, and can be cheesed out with like Mickey Mouse Trumpeteer. I've seen this guy work, just being able to deal 2 damage on a ping and have a throw out a big body. But overall, it's definitely more of a starter deck boss of like again just hey I have a bunch of super rares or something I'm gonna give to my friend. Where did he get shuffled into? I lost that card forever in this mess. Okay, well, anyway, he goes into starter deck tier. Other Simba, again, starter deck tier as well. We're going to move him up here and then move him up. The problem is when you get so many things. Oh, no, that's Mufasa. The problem is when you have such a big list, you just have to put things into places to get to other places. But yeah, both Simbas, unfortunately, going into D tier. I tried also making small Simba work as I mean, it's just Maleficent. I'm like, well, I'm playing purple and I'm playing red. Why am I not playing this other version? This is the exact same card as Maleficent for the 3, but you don't really want to play red aggro too much. I'm gonna put this one in. No, it's starter deck. I mean, like it just hasn't seen play, unfortunately. Sir Hiss, 3-1 evasive, not good. Skippy, Ward 2-2, not good. Slightly Lost Boy 4-3. You have to have Peter Pan in play, and Peter Pans are all F tier as well, so you shouldn't be playing this. Starkey, big pirate, great and concealed, horrible and constructed. Starlight, pay 2 less for the next action you play. Really, really bad even in sealed events. Stitch, Covert Agent. I wanted this card to be good, but unfortunately he is just not that great, unfortunately. While this character is at a location, he gains ward, but he's such a weak body line, even if you quest with him. If it had, he does have evasive. So like there can be some plague potential. And just questing for 2 after turn 5, I don't know, just better options, I feel like. So we're going to play him unplayable for now. However, his rocket ship version, Stitch, the little rocket 3-1 rush. This card should be a lot more respected. I'm going to put this up in D tier because it didn't play. Honestly, I'm going to say C tier. This card with Perdita is phenomenal. This card, even in like Ruby Amethyst, I would in early testing with Ruby Amethyst and early testing with like my blue Ruby deck. Then I felt like this card had a place for it, even though it was uninkable. I felt like with Fishbone Quill I could ink it late game if I needed to, but this card is just really good, and I'm surprised more people haven't really. I haven't seen it more. I've tested it a lot. It's never bad, but it's just one of those things I go back to and cut when I have to, unfortunately. Stratos, again, Titan deck. Titan deck just doesn't really see too much play. We're going to put him in C tier. It's not bad. It's just gain lore equal to the number of Titans in play. You can have a lot, you can have little, but this guy does have a solid stat line where it's hard to die, and it has evasive, so it's usually going to be pretty good. Strike a good match. This card is easy A. Just because with the Strike a Good Match card, you are often going to be singing it, so you're really just getting a free card out of the entire advantage. So it's kind of scrying your deck a little bit. But if you're playing it with Ursula, then it gets really good because you can go deep and figure out exactly what you need by getting rid of stuff that you don't need as well. So easy. Red's draw power with Sumerian Talisman. Again, good in the pirate deck, but overall, there's better draw power options. We're gonna put this one in the actual starter deck, just because it's not consistent enough to really make work. Thetis, whenever this character quests, while at a location, you deal 1 damage to chosen character. Requires locations, it just requires too much. We're going to put that into F tier. The Bare Necessities. This is another S tier song. Just easy, easy removal option. Great turn 2 card to play, help fatter out people's hands. Uh, Getting out some of the big blowout cards, getting out a character's items is huge. I think this card is better than Ursula in some ways, but this is still a meta-defining card. This card existing is one of the reasons why I will ink my friends on the other side on turn 1 if I'm playing against yellow control, because I'm just expecting it to get ripped out anyways. The Bayou, I know it's in the OTK deck. I don't care. It's an F tier card. Friend is on, boss is on a roll. Will be a really good next set. We're gonna throw in starter deck tier for D now, but it's gonna be really good with the Bruno stuff coming out. I can see it being I can see it going up in value, but overall it's a D tier this set. Firebird never saw play. Like I've never seen anybody play that in anything. Lamp could have been good if it was inkable. It's not. We're gonna put it in D tier, or yeah, D. I think is solid for it. The Queen, 4/3 vanilla body. Nobody's playing this card on turn 3. Just again, I'd rather play the whole Madam Mim package. We have a blue version of her as well. Blue. 2/5 this time. Whenever this character quests, look at the top 3 cards, allowing you to stack your deck a little bit. Again, not really seen play whatsoever. However, the Queen's Castle. There's a card with meat. That is easily S tier. It has 7 health, willpower, gains 2 every single turn, and allows you to draw for every character that is sitting on there. Easy S tier card, one of the best locations in the game, arguably the best location in the game. And yeah, that's S tier. Magical Hat, that's F tier. We can put that on the bottom. Sorcerer's Tower, very, very niche. If you're playing your broom deck, then yeah, you got us with the brooms. I don't even know if you play this in broom deck though. Characters, all the brooms gain 1 lore. That is good for your broom deck. So yeah, we'll put this into C tier so I don't get yelled at in the comments. Where'd it go? I lost it forever. Okay, it's the broom deck is gone. It's gonna be in C tier as well. Sorcerer's Tower, yeah, we can put that in C. Tiana's Palace, thought would see a little bit more play. It did not. I never thought this card was that good, but I didn't expect it to be that bad. Just uninkable, really expensive. Costs 2 to move them there. I thought this card would see more play. I understand why it didn't. 4-drop Tinkerbells. So this Tinkerbell is just Ariel version. I think she is always going to be a solid B card. I don't think she's ever amazing. I don't think she's ever bad. I think that for a new for a 4-drop that you'll probably play in Steel Song, which will allow you to grab your big tank next turn. It's just a good tempoed card that will help you filter your deck a little bit more. Unlike Blue Tinkerbell, this Tinkerbell is pretty much useless. Whenever one of your items is banished, you may put in Inkwell. That directly counters to what you want to do with your items with Blue. So you want to get Tamatoa out so you can get your items back. This card goes against that. Has your heart. I did find that card finally. That card's B. We're going to throw that in B while I find it on my list. I know I'm looking at a different screen sometimes. I'm going to put that in B tier. All right, who we got? So we are coming down to the wire of this. The Guardian, we can just put that in F tier as well. This guy, the Birdman, we can throw him in F tier as well. I don't think I've ever seen him play. Let's talk about Ursulas, because all these Ursulas are pretty insane. This card is easily S tier, and the reason is S tier is because people built their deck with this in here, and just like Bare Necessities, I was inking my songs because I knew that they wouldn't survive against a green player. So great stat line, fun to bounce if you're playing with purple. Has a lot of control aspects. If you're playing other like discard fodder cards, then this card just can sing songs. She can do so much that this is easily an S tier card. I won't hear the end of it. And if she's an S tier, then we all know that purple Ursula. No, I'm kidding. It's green Ursula is the other S tier card for sure. I again double singing friends on the other side, double singing bounce cards, double singing bare necessities. This card is always going to be good. I think this is easily a meta defining card. And again, you had to have an answer for your opponent. This is why Smash existed still. This is why I was playing like Kick Cloud Kicker because I needed to deal with it. You had to build your deck expecting to face Ursula in some capacity. And if you didn't have an answer for it, your opponent could just pull ahead crazy amount of value. So easily S tier card. Sea Witch, I would probably put in a starter deck. She is not horrible. She's only going to get better next set because there's a shiftable Ursula coming out. But I think overall, she doesn't quite get there for a 3-3-3 stat line. It's okay. And honestly, the rest of these cards are basically going into F tier. Voyage is bad. Uh, Vault Door is bad. Never seen play. Not even for a starter deck. Webby is just a vanilla. Not really that great. Windy Darling can. Both of the Windy Darlings I think can actually go into like maybe a B tier. Just because they are two lore aggro targets. Having support with Windy at a 3-1 and giving her ward so that way she survives a turn will allow you to make favorable trades with some of your lower, maybe like you have Grandma Tala at the 2-drop on her. So I can see potential on blue Sap Windy Darling. In yellow, Windy Darling is just a really, really good aggro character as well. So I think both of those can go into B tier just fine. I just wouldn't personally run them myself, but I can see them being valuable. The Wildcat, although it is item removal and I feel like everybody needs item removal, I think He Has My Heart is way better, less situational, and you don't have to waste a turn by tapping this character in order to kind of get there. So I think that this is a fine starter deck card. I think he's got a decent enough stat line where you might play him. I just don't really use him for the item. I wouldn't really use him for key item removal when I have other options in green. Wildcat Ranch, not necessary. Zazu, I saw somebody play yesterday. I wasn't really that impressed with it. I think again, as far as a turn one character, if you're moving him to a location deck, I mean he's fine. I can't call him unplayable because he did get some lore for him, but we'll put him in D tier for sure. So that's gonna wrap up our S tier list, guys. This is Ursula's up top in the S tier, Queen's Castle, Bare Necessities, the Robin Hoods, Rafiki, Smee. Not quite as many like legendaries as you might expect for like S tier defining cards, but we did get at least four of them. Yeah, that's pretty good. I feel like half of the legendaries in the set were really, really impactful. But what surprised me is a lot of the rares really were too, and some of the uncommons like Cursed Merfolk is a rare, great card. Chernobog Followers was just a phenomenal card as well for purple. Rafiki was a huge, huge card. McDuck Manor, highly unrespected, but it cost people for that. So I think that this list is a pretty solid defining list, and I'm pretty happy with everything that Inklands came, and I'm really, really excited for Ursula's. I got 3 boxes to open up myself, and I'm excited to get it all going. I'm excited to see where the new set's going to take us. If you guys want to see more of these contents, please let me know. Like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff, and I am again Prunk, and I'll catch you guys for the next Ursula's set.